2-year-old won't nap, 3-year-old won't stay in bed. So you had this baby who all of a sudden turned into a toddler. When did that happen? They transitioned from 2 naps a day to 1, and everything was going fine until all of a sudden it's not fine. They are not napping. They are not sleeping well at night. Maybe they're climbing out of their crib. Their sleep is just all of a sudden a disaster. All the progress you've made over the course of their whole lifetime feels like it's coming to a screeching halt. I feel your pain. We've got this. Hello, I'm Cassie from Custom Built Parenthood. I'm a child development enthusiast and mama to 3 kids ages 7, 5, and 1. If you're looking to find more happiness in parenting and just understand your kids better, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell, and just join in this conversation so that I can learn from you. Are you at your wit's end wondering why your toddler's not sleeping? I was just there with my almost 2-year-old, and it is terrible. So today I want to help you guys out with what I did to get my toddler back on track. I'm boiling toddler sleep down to a simple 5-step checklist, and if you stick around until the end, we'll address the really important question of what to do if your kid is getting out of bed or even climbing out of their crib. So my 1-year-old will be 2 in just a few weeks, and finally, for the past, I'd say week, maybe week and a half, he's gotten back on track with his sleep. For a month or maybe even 2 months, we were having serious crisis over here. It really was like all of a sudden, he was crying every time I laid him down for a nap or at bedtime. Usually, I just tuck him in and not a peep. He was happy to be there, fell asleep when he fell asleep. But as this crying turned into a pattern, I quickly realized that he, of course, was getting overtired from this lack of sleep. He would fall asleep in the car pretty much any time and was just not a happy camper in general. Thank goodness, after weeks and maybe months of sticking to the schedule, tears and all, we have now reached the other side, and he naps a couple hours every day and goes to bed at night without a single fuss. So, boy, was it a journey though, let me tell you. As I spent time researching, again, remember he's my 3rd child, I was reminded that when it comes to sleep, it can just get so complicated. Maybe it's just me, but it truly feels like it's rocket science trying to get your kid to sleep. My goal in this video is to just avoid these feelings and take you through a simple step-by-step process, or even like a checklist, so that it feels a little more clear-cut. First, I think it's important you know this about me up front. I have always said, like clear back in my foster care days, and probably will continue saying forever, that you can't force a kid to sleep. That's their choice. But you certainly can make it harder or easier for them to sleep. So like we always try to do around here, we are looking to own our half of this sleep equation and let our toddler handle their half. So step 1, get your toddler napping. The $1 million question that you're probably wondering is, what age should a toddler stop napping? I'd have to say sometime after 3 years old. Every kid is different, of course, but by age 3, the majority of kids are still napping. There are actually plenty of 3, 4, or even 5-year-olds who are still needing a nap every day or occasionally. The whole thing you're looking for, if you think that they're really done napping, is that they seem well rested at every point in the day. They're not sleepy during the day, naps make it harder for them to sleep at night, or if they consistently skip naps, they have 0 signs of being tired. But if they're getting really on edge or crashing late afternoon, early evening, or falling asleep in the car, all of those are indications that they're tired and need a nap. So remember, sleep begets sleep. So if your toddler isn't getting a nap when they need one, it can lead to all these other sleep problems like struggling to fall asleep at night, night wakings, early rising. So top priority is to reestablish the nap. We do this by consistently expecting them to nap. This is a boundary we're going to establish for the sake of everyone. So every day at nap time, do the nap time routine, lay them down, and leave. If they start crying, just like we talked about when sleep training your baby, you'll have to figure out the approach that you feel comfortable with. Cry it out, occasionally check on them with certain time. I've mentioned the sleep lady shuffle. All of these are options, and there's definitely no one size fits all for every kid or every parent. But here's what I did. So my approach and what many experts recommend is to recognize that sleep is a valid need for your child, and crying shouldn't deter us from helping get that need met for them. If your kid cries for ice cream every day at lunch, do you just let them skip out on that meal and have ice cream? So I don't let crying get in the way of my child getting sleep. So I would tuck my child in for a nap and set a timer for an hour. What he chose to do during that hour was totally on him, but I wouldn't go in there until it had been an hour. Well, I'll just be honest, this did not work right away for him at all. I was honestly at a loss the more time that went by that he still was having these problems. Also, he was having some tummy issues. He was also getting some teeth. So I actually, after a while, tried a few different approaches, like sitting in his room or laying in his room with him. But quickly, I felt like this was only making things worse. And so I went back to my original approach of basically letting him cry it out. The whole thing is just to stick with it. I knew he wasn't ready to let go of naps, so I was going to make sure that he was going to get back to having naps. I can pretty confidently say that when I changed it up and was going in there and I just wasn't being totally consistent, it really did hinder our progress and made it take even longer. Quick note, if you're curious how long naps should be, most kids nap for 2 hours, but it can range from anywhere from 1 to 3.5 hours. Also, if you're really convinced that your kid is ready to be done napping, I strongly urge you to hold on to this window of time for them and continue expecting them to have quiet time. It certainly won't be as long as a nap, but if you establish a window of time that they're expected to stay quietly in their room by themselves, they're going to be more likely to take a nap if they are tired. Step 2, while you continue expecting them to nap, is to adjust your toddler's bedtime. It's normal as they progress through life that sleep is going to fluctuate. The amount of daytime sleep they're getting, the nighttime sleep, everything needs to evolve with them. So do some experimenting with their bedtime. There's 2 likely scenarios. First is that your child already has a bedtime that's quite early, so you're going to try to slowly move the bedtime a little bit later by about 10 minutes a night. The goal is that they'll sleep in later, wake up better rested, and be more able to take an afternoon nap. This was definitely our case. I was tucking him in around 6:30, and any earlier than that was unreasonable and would make him only wake up earlier. So I gradually was bumping his bedtime back. Now I tuck him in at 7:30, and that has just totally done the trick. That's the magic kind of sweet spot for him. Second scenario, if their bedtime is already quite late, you're going to move the bedtime slowly earlier, about 10-minute increments probably, with the hope that they'll wake up better rested and more likely to take the nap. So we're still expecting them to nap. We're working on adjusting the bedtime. Now we're going to make a few tweaks to our daytime routine. So step 3 is to make mornings exciting. Try to get your toddler involved in some real morning play. Let them really run around, get them outside, incorporate something really stimulating. Just let them exert some energy. Then, after lunch, include an extra long wind down time before naps. Slow it down, maybe gradually get the room a bit darker. As you just calmly play or read, you're just prepping their body for sleep. These 2 things together will hopefully help you recognize and hit that sweet spot of them being tired, but not overly tired when you're tucking them in. And this will also help them be more able to recognize when it's time to play and when it's time to sleep. Step 4 is to get your toddler sleeping all night. We want to tackle nighttime wakings. So your toddler fell asleep, either calmly or crying, and a few hours later wakes up. Once again, I'm not going to tell you what's right for your family, but I know for me, I feel very comfortable and confident establishing the boundary with all of my kids that down is down. I got that from this sleep book. I'll show you right here. It's just my go-to for all things sleep related. I will link it in the description. Down is down means no getting out of bed until morning. So this might mean deciding to let your younger toddler cry in their crib without any engagement from you throughout the night. Or you may decide to go in there, but really limit the time and interaction. Whatever you're comfortable with, you just want to be really careful to avoid reinforcing their waking up during the night, because it definitely can turn into a habit. Step 5 is to tackle early rising. A toddler waking up too early may be caused by going to sleep too late. So hopefully you implemented the earlier bedtime in step 2, and that earlier bedtime has prolonged night sleep and prevented early wake-ups. But if not, all you need to do is just decide what time is acceptable for them to wake up. This isn't really just to allow us the luxury of sleeping in, it's to encourage good sleep and healthy habits in them. Some sleep experts will say any time after 6 a.m. is pretty fair game and reasonable. In my house, it's 6:30 a.m. Basically, just decide on the time that's acceptable, and then you're not going to go in there until that time. Again, if you're having crisis over them crying it out, do what you need to do, but it is very effective to hold this morning boundary. You can think about getting a special clock or a nightlight on a timer to help them learn when it is wake up time. I even still do this with my older kids. They both have something in their room that tells them basically when they're allowed to get out of their bed. The important thing with your toddler is if they're crying and once it's wake up time, you want to just bounce into their room, bright-eyed and pleasant, pointing out their clock or their nightlight that it's on and it's time to start the day now. Okay, so we'd better address the elephant in the room. What if your toddler gets out of bed? You either already put them in a big bed or they're climbing out of their crib. This is a complete game changer. And it might feel like none of this information even applies if that's happening. So let's first talk about climbing out of their crib. In my book, just so we're clear, the longer your toddler stays in a crib, the better. It is just so much easier on everybody to get good sleep. So this guy from this book recommends to let your child ask for a big bed. This means if your kid isn't old enough to ask for one, they're not ready for one. So let's just decide to not rush this. But your toddler might have ideas of their own and start climbing out. A crib tent could be the solution. How did I not know about these, you guys? I totally would have used one for my second kid who was climbing out of his crib way before age 2. It was so early and it was a disaster. So I would seriously love to know in the comments below if anyone has used these crib tents, because it sounds pretty genius to me. So that's an option. The author also points out that serious injuries rarely occur when a child is climbing out of their crib, so it actually shouldn't be a reason to move them into a big bed. So we're keeping them in their crib as long as possible, but unfortunately they can't stay in there forever, right? I guess probably not. So once your toddler is in a big bed, all of these same 5 steps are going to apply. We still need them to get sleep, and we still need our sleep, so we are going to hold firm in these boundaries. The concept that we're going to master is the silent return to sleep. Remember the rule down is down that we talked about in step 4? We're going to expand on that a bit for this older age group of kids who are actually coming out of their room. They're not just sitting there crying in their room, and so we're having dilemmas. What should I do? Should I help them? No. These kids are actually coming out of their room, which is very disruptive to everybody. So whether it's nap or nighttime, the same process is going to apply of down is down. At a separate point in the day, so probably before nap or before bed, we are going to announce this new rule to our toddler. So down is down. You'll be telling them that getting out of bed isn't allowed, and that when they do get out of bed, we're going to put them back in their room without talking or looking at them. Whether you're being sweet and kind or upset and angry, or even if you're just sitting there having a whole conversation about how everyone needs their sleep, all of this is attention and will actually reinforce their desire to get out of bed for more attention. So we want to appear completely disinterested, almost mechanical, no more nap or night entertainment happening around here. That's the goal. A quick note on locking your kid's door, because I've totally done that before for my older kids. This author says that if you're totally desperate, this should be the very last option if you have extenuating circumstances or something. And if you are going to do this, first get earplugs for yourself to ignore the banging, crying, yelling. All that's going to be going down, so be ready. Second, place the child back in their crib. in their bed once they fall asleep. And third, praise them when they eventually stay in their bed on their own at night. So hopefully you're feeling empowered to tackle your toddler's sleep. It is so worth the effort. And remember, even if your kid still isn't cooperating the way that you would like them to after doing all these things, just take responsibility for your side, check all these 5 boxes, and just let go of the rest because it's out of your control. You are doing great. You've got this, and we'll see you next time.